Hey guys, Torquus here. So in this video I wanted to talk about the cards coming to Legends of Runeterra in the upcoming Empires of the Ascended expansion. I am pretty far behind on the card reveals. I believe they're basically all revealed at this point, aside from probably Azir is going to be the last champion we're going to see to round out the Ascended champions. And, yeah, I'm planning to machine gun out a bunch of card reviews for you guys, but we're going to start off with the ones that were revealed a while back, and I'm going to do it in order of how the cards were revealed, though I will have the added context that I have seen all of the cards that have been revealed so far. I do have the context of some other opinions that I've heard on these cards already. But I will be giving you guys my impressions of what I think about these cards. I'll be able to use that context to give you a better perspective on if I think they're going to be viable or not. So to start off with, let's look at Buried Sun Disk, which is a 1-mana landmark for Shurima. Start of game, draw one of me if all of your cards are Shuriman. Count down 25 to restore the Sun Disk, and when an Ascended ally levels up, advance me 10 rounds. So the payoff is this restored Sun Disk, which draws one of each of your Ascendeds, which I assume are all champions. And for the rest of the game, your level 2 Ascendants are level 3. So you generally, I believe you're going to be playing this in a mono Shurima deck with just Shuriman cards. That way you can run one copy and you instantly get it in your hand, so you can play it on turn 1. It's a free draw, so you don't have to draw it off your mulligan or anything like that. It just happens automatically, which seems pretty great. Then the countdown 25 means that you do have to wait 25 rounds before it goes off, but this ally leveling up effect is probably how you're actually going to finish it, because you're not going to wait 25 rounds, the game's going to be over. One level up means countdown's 15, still seems pretty unlikely that that's going to go off, so you will be expecting to have to level up 2 champions before this goes off. That leaves it as a countdown 5, which finishes on turn 6. Turn 6, you're probably not even going to have 2 champions leveled up by then, so that's no problem. This will be finished the second you hit your second level up. So, leveling up your champions, finishing this countdown, not really a big requirement if you have the synergy you need in order to level up your champions. So far, we do know about Renekton, and we know about Nasus. We're assuming Azir is going to happen. I don't know how he's going to level up. I don't know how easy it will be to level him up in mono Shurima. But as far as I can tell, leveling Renekton in mono Shurima seems pretty easy. We have a lot of vulnerable effects. He does need to just strike with 2 hits if he's getting his buff from these vulnerable effects, because he does get extra attack when he's challenging units. And he only needs to strike for 12 with his 4 attack on base. So, not too hard. Nasus, however, needs to strike for 10. He starts out as a 2-2, and he grows every time you slay something. In Shurima, we don't see too much removal or even sacrifice effects or anything like that. This is the kind of stuff you're going to want in other regions, especially Shadow Isles is going to be the big region for Nasus, if you ask me. So, honestly, I think that leveling Nasus is going to be really hard to do in a mono Shurima deck. It's going to take you a long time to do. So, I think what you're really going to want to be doing is you're going to want to be running this card, Ascended's Rise, which is a 7-mana slow speed spell that levels up all your level 1 Ascended allies. They will obviously be hitting level 2 off of this. As far as we know, there's only champions that are Ascendeds, and, champions level up. This makes sense. It's weird that it says allies, but maybe there's some weird follower action that'll happen there one day. But as far as we've seen, there are no ascended followers, and if there were, it would be weird that they would have level ups, but yeah. So for the time being, just ascended champions. And that would mean that you could play this as soon as turn 4 if you banked mana from turn 3. That is a huge tempo loss, but it is something you could do. Or you could wait until your champions are already on board. You play the Renekton, you play the Nasus. The Nasus may be a little small, which may make him a little difficult to keep alive. But if you do get them both down, turn 4, turn 6, turn 7, you could play this and then instantly level up. And then you'd go straight from level 1 to level 3, because the level up from the first part would finish, and then the level up from the Sun Disk would also finish. Because of the fact that Nasus seems so hard to level up in a mono Shurima deck, I think that this will be your main reason, or your main way of leveling them up in this deck. I don't think that it's a bad deal for you to instantly get 2 10-10s, or in Nasus's case, bigger than 10-10, with huge effects like Nasus has the -3 attack on all your opponent's units. He gets Fearsome, Renekton has the Overwhelm, he's got the AoE attack. So both of them will be huge threats that you just swing in and win the game on the spot. That would be the expectation as to how you would win the game with this deck. Whether it's viable or not, that's another question. But I think that you could run, 1 or 2 of these Ascended Rise. There are some predict cards that can put cards on top of your deck if you find them. So that could be a helpful way to stop you from having to run 3 copies, or maybe you still run 3 copies just for the certainty that it's going to happen. But you can always do that to make sure you always have it on turn 7. There are ways to tutor your champions in the region too, so getting them on board before that turn won't be really a problem. So you have all this stuff working together to make sure that this happens. I think that will be the game plan. The only problem there would be you may potentially not be able to make it to that point if you're not really able to block with your champions effectively because you need them to stay alive, and because you are, spending quite a few turns, quite a few mana points developing this stuff towards this win condition. You're playing Renekton on 4, you're playing Nasus on 6, you're playing this on 7. All that stuff. And, if they remove your units before it goes off, that's a big thing. If they deny this, all this kind of stuff. It's a little bit inconsistent, but if it happens, if it actually happens, you win it right there. You win the game. There's no way that 2 10-10s with those kinds of upsides on turn 7 aren't going to be able to at least put your opponent into an unrecoverable position. The rest of the cards in the deck are probably just going to try and support that game plan of making that happen. I don't know how much of a meme it's going to be, really, like how much aggression is going to be out there. I think that's the main thing, is going to be whether this succeeds, is how aggressive the meta is, if they can race you down quick enough before this happens. If they aren't an aggressive deck and you do hit all these mana points with your champion, with your Ascended's Rise, I think there's no way that they'd be able to beat you after that. So I think it'll be pretty viable. I find it hard to believe that it would really be that bad. You'll try to use those predict cards to make sure that you have that consistency you need to make this happen. There are a few turns that you can do that on. Turn 2 you can look for stuff. Turn 3 you can look for stuff. So yeah, I think it'll be quite good. I don't think it'll be the the best deck in the meta necessarily. It certainly could be, but if it did get too out of control, I imagine people would just try to counter it in one way or another. Landmark removal, obviously, if you're running one copy of this, one landmark removal and your deck falls apart. And if you are fully committing to it and then they do the landmark removal, that will be really bad, because having this in your hand and they remove your landmark and then this... I mean, I guess you still need them to level up, but the payoff will definitely not be there as much. The committalness of the deck will be a little bit of a throw at that point. But yeah, deny, removal on your champions. There's a lot of ways to make it not happen, and people would go out of their way to stop it if it became tier 1. So I don't think it'll ever be a tier 1 deck. I don't think that would ever be allowed by the player base. So overall, I'd say Buried Sundisk is going to be pretty decent. Again, it will never be tier 1 or anything like that. No one will ever allow that to be the case. But it will be a cool idea for, fulfilling your giant minion fantasies. I'm sure it will be a very popular deck on day 1 and such like that. I really don't think this is going to be outside of Mono Shurima, just because, even if you were to feel like it would really benefit you to do something like that, and you run 3 copies because you aren't drawing it at the start of the game, just imagine you being forced into leveling your champion a little bit early before you draw it, and then you draw it right after, and then you're never gonna complete this anymore because of the fact that you already leveled your champion. So yeah, it's definitely stuck in Mono Shurima, and it'll be pretty good. I'll say it'll be pretty good for sure. Then the next card we have is Destined Poro. This is a 1-mana 1/1, and round start, if you've leveled a champion, transform me into an Exalted Poro. And as you can see here, the Exalted Poro is a 1-mana 2/2 that I have 3 random keywords. So, every region has to have a Poro, obviously. That's been the case so far with every region that's been released, including Targon got the Spell Shield Poro. The whole, leveling a champion thing, some champions are pretty easy to level to some degree, but none of them level, too fast. I know some people have talked about Katarina as a champion that can trigger these champion has leveled up condition, because all she has to do is attack. But for one thing, I don't think it's a huge upside to that. It's got 3 keywords, maybe you get, Overwhelm, Scout, and, Regen or something. And, those sound really good, but it's on a 2/2 body, so unless you are buffing it somehow, it's not really going to matter that it has 3 keywords. And if you're going to be buffing it, then I don't know what deck you're playing. Maybe you're doing, Shurima build. You're doing Shurima Freljord with Braum and stuff with all the Poros, but then Braum doesn't level up very easily. And what champion are you going to do in those regions? So, the more you think about it, the more it doesn't really line up properly, right? Like, any champion that would pair well with a Poro and a buff target wouldn't pair well with leveling up very easily. Not to mention, even if you do level up a champion, you have to play this, and it has to survive until the end of the turn, and then it transforms. And not even beyond that, it has to be buffed on board, because the stats will go away if it transforms. So, you can't do it with a hand buff thing either. So it's just so awkward. It really doesn't make any sense. they'll remove it with a 1 mana or a 1 damage effect, and it'll never get its keyword sometimes, or you just challenge it and it doesn't take any. They don't take any damage having to deal with it. Like I think it's definitely not going to be very good. I don't think it's gonna fit into any decks ever. Probably not even any Poro decks. I don't think Shurima's gonna be your Poro deck region anytime soon. So I think it's terrible. I don't think anyone's gonna play it. Then we have Esteemed Hierophant, 3 mana, 3/4, and when I'm summoned, advance your Buried Sundisk 2 rounds. So as I said while we were talking about the Sundisk, I think that how it's going to go down is you're leveling 2 champions, and it will be done its countdown on turn 6. In that situation, this does nothing. This effect here has 0 impact on that game plan. For this to matter, you would need to not be doing that. So let's say you level 1 champion, you're having your countdown going to 15 instead, right? That means that this is dropping your 15 countdown by 2, going down to 13. That is not going to matter. Turn 13 is still too late, or turn 14, I should say. It doesn't have to count each round after the first, because you play it on the first round. So let's say you play 3 copies of this. You play 3 of them. That is 6 rounds off your timer. Now it's turn 9. That's more sensical, but it requires you to have played 3 3/4s that did nothing other than just being stats during the game. 9 mana worth of investment along the way. Doesn't really seem to be important to what the Buried Sundisk is trying to do. You know, if you're going to be doing that, I don't think it really makes as much sense as just trying to level 2 champions and then getting it done that way. So the only reason this would ever end up seeing any play is just because you need a 3-drop in a mono Shurima deck. Like, we know there's better 3-drops in other regions, but maybe you're just in the mono Shurima deck. You have nothing better to play on turn 3 because there's, nothing else in the region yet. So you play this, and it advances your Sundisk, which might end up mattering, might not end up mattering. So that's something, I suppose. So for that reason, it might be played, but I'm going to say big doubt on that front. I think it's probably not going to make any sense in any decks. It does have a decent stat line, but the Buried Sundisk effect has no impact on the Buried Sundisk game plan, in my opinion. So, I don't think it'll end up being a very popular card. Then we have Devoted Council. 3 mana, 1/6. Round start, if you leveled a champion, heal your champions and Nexus 2. So this seems pretty sweet. In any deck where you manage to, level a champion somewhat quickly, then this is going to be healing your Nexus every turn. It's very similar to Broadback Protector in Targon, but it comes down 1 turn earlier. Has 2 less stats, but it isn't hurting itself to do it, and it hits your champions as well. So that's pretty cool. It's hard for me to imagine exactly what region you're putting this in, what deck you're putting it into. It's going to probably be a slower deck if you are playing something like this. It's not an aggressively statted minion. It's kind of just going to sit on your bench and just keep being a heal engine. Maybe you can play it with Soraka, some sort of Shurima Soraka deck. I'm not sure what other synergies there are initially going off the top of my head between Soraka and the Shurima package. But, it could be a thing. It could be a thing. That's probably the thing that, comes off the most. But I think in a slower Shurima control deck that does have a champion that isn't played too late into the game, you could end up running this. You're not necessarily playing this on 3, but you could if you had to. It doesn't block fearsomes or anything, which is a little bit rough on that front, especially if we are going to be seeing more fearsomes in the near future. So I think it's alright. I don't know if there's going to be any place for it initially. It might be something that happens later down the line. It might make a little bit of sense in, like, Nasus and Kindred, just because Kindred might be able to level relatively quickly. But even then, that's like turn 7, maybe, when you're finally going to start doing this. It's probably not going to be around too much for now, but I think certainly once we see more champions with the future expansions and stuff, I think it'll eventually find a home somewhere. But this expansion might not be the case. Maybe it's got some better synergy with Azir. We don't know how well Azir is going to do in terms of leveling quickly and whatnot. But yeah, for now, I think it's going to be a little underwhelming. Then we have Voice of the Risen. 4 mana, 3/4. If you've leveled a champion, allies have +2/+0. So a very cool aura effect. We don't have a lot of aura buffs and stuff like that. I think it'll be pretty cool. This definitely makes more sense with that Katarina idea, because Katarina levels up quickly, and it also obviously has a lot of synergy with wideboard strategies. So this works well with wideboard strategies. You keep rallying your wideboard of significantly buff stuff. We'll just keep attacking over and over. So that seems pretty cool. You could definitely pair it with Noxus and House Spider and such in that way. I could see that being a thing. Any aggressive Shurima deck that can level up their champion relatively effectively might see this end up fitting into it. These level up champion effects are certainly quite a requirement sometimes. So I think Katarina's the most likely place for this to work. I don't know if that's going to be very viable. Katarina could just get Mystic Shotted, and then, your curve falls apart. You're trying to play her on 3, and then play this on 4, and then develop your wideboard the turn after, potentially. Or maybe you're playing this a little bit later. You probably haven't developed your board up too much before that, if that's the case. So yeah, I think it might see some play a little bit here or there. Probably won't be the most competitive card ever. If we can get some sort of fast champion working really well, that would be great. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be too good. It is a cool concept, though, for sure. And we have Golden Ambassador, 4 mana, 3/2 Allegiance, and draw a champion, grant it +2/+2. So a champion tutor effect is definitely really strong. You're probably going to want this in your mono Shurima deck, because it does have guaranteed Allegiance to hit, and it will make your Nasus bigger, it'll make your Renekton bigger, both things that want to have those extra stats. It's a little understated itself, obviously. You're basically giving the stats that it should have to the champion, and hopefully your champion will use it better than her anyways. But yeah, it's definitely really cool. We have 2 champion tutor effects with this being a thing. So outside of mono Shurima, I don't know how many other Allegiance Shurima decks you can really pull off. I think most other decks are going to have quite a few cards from other regions to synergize with. Maybe the Renekton deck, just like some sort of Renekton deck with some support cards from other regions, might want to run this in it. But you're definitely going to see this in the Mono Shurima deck. You know, we don't expect that to be top tier or anything, but people will play this in that deck, and people will be playing that deck, I'm sure, at least for the start of the expansion. I think it's very solid. I think it looks pretty sweet. And if you compare it to the Invoke card in Targon, that is 4 mana, grab the champion, give it +2/+2, and discount it by 1. This does look quite a bit better than that, because you don't have to invoke for it, you can't use spell mana, but Allegiance should be easier to trigger than all that, and you do get the 3/2 body in addition to it. So I definitely like it. It looks good. And we already talked about Ascended's Rise. I don't think there's anything else to say about this. If you're going to use it anywhere, it's going to be in your Mono Shurima Sundis deck, and it's going to make sure that you get to your level 3s on turn 7 at the latest. If Azir can be played earlier, maybe you can even pull it off turn 6 or turn 5. That would be really, really sick. Unlikely, but really, really sick. You know, that would require Azir to be a 3-drop, I suppose, if you wanted to do it on turn 5. But if you can do it on turn 5, my god, that will be a big freaking deal if you can get, like, level 3 Renekton on turn 5. But yeah, so, you know, I think it'll be core to that deck. We'll see how good that deck ends up being, but I think it'll be very cool and very fun to play with. So that's going to be it for this video. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it. Comment down below what you think of the new cards, and if you'd like to see more of my content in the future, please subscribe so you can see it when it comes out, and I will see you guys in the next one.